All right. Welcome back, everybody. Ready for another deep dive?
Definitely.
Awesome. Today we're going to be taking a deep dive into Shilo Sanders and his journey to the 2025 NFL Draft. So if you're listening, you probably want to know if he's worth all the hype. And we've got some stuff here that will help you figure that out, right?
Yeah, for sure. We've got tons of scouting reports and articles breaking down his whole college career. And we'll look at some draft projections too, so we can get an idea of where the experts think he might end up.
Perfect. Now, I know there's been like a ton of talk about Shiloh's, his performance at those East-West Shrine Bowl practices. Some are saying, it wasn't so great. But we'll get into that a bit later. First, let's kind of trace back his path, right? It's been quite a ride.
It really has. Three different schools, South Carolina, Jackson State, and now Colorado. And yeah, that does line up with where his dad, Deion, was coaching. It makes you wonder, do you think all that moving around could actually be a strength for him?
Yeah.
Adapting to different systems, new coaches, constantly having to prove himself, it takes a certain resilience.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. It's not like most players who stay put, just kind of hone their skills in one system. He's had to prove himself over and over.
Exactly. And it's not like he was just along for the ride either. At Jackson State, he earned second team All-SWAC honors. And then at Colorado, he ended up in the top 10 all-time for tackles in a single season by a Colorado defensive back. We're talking 70 tackles, which is no joke.
No, absolutely not. So we know the talent is there, but then we get to those Shrine Bowl practices and suddenly the internet just explodes with all this like negativity. So what's your take on all that? Is it really as bad as some people are making it out to be?
Well, you got to remember those practice sessions and these all-star games, especially the Shrine Bowl, they aren't always the best way to predict how someone's going to perform, when it really matters. These guys are all thrown together. They're learning new playbooks, trying to figure out how to work with new teammates. And it's just a lot to process in such a short time.
Right, right. So maybe we shouldn't hit the panic button just yet.
Exactly.
But one of our sources, NFL Rookie Watch, they pointed out that it seemed like only the negative clips of Shiloh's performance were actually making it online. It was almost like they made a highlight reel of all his worst moments, So doesn't that paint a pretty skewed picture?
For sure.
Yeah.
It's like judging a chef based on, a couple dishes that didn't turn out right. You completely miss all the amazing meals they've cooked before.
Totally.
So yeah, we got to be careful about that selective editing.
For sure. And it makes you think, why? What's the motivation there? But hey, even with all this buzz, a lot of scouts still see massive potential in Shilo. NFL Draft Buzz, they called him one of the most intriguing safety prospects in this whole 2025 class. So what is it about his game that has them so excited?
Well, when you look at the scouting reports, a few things really jump out. His ball skills, for one. I mean, the guy just has a knack for creating turnovers. Plus, his closing speed and his range are both excellent. Like, he covers a lot of ground and he covers it fast. And finally, he shows really strong instincts in zone coverage.
Right. So it sounds like we're talking about a player who's not just physically gifted, but he also seems to have like a really good understanding of the game, And those 70 tackles at Colorado, that tells me he's not afraid to get involved, to get physical.
Yeah, exactly. And don't forget, we're talking about a young player who's already shown he can adapt and excel in new environments. Combine that with, all those strengths we talked about. And it's pretty easy to see why scouts are still optimistic.
Yeah. Okay. So we've got this raw talent, this proven adaptability, but then there's also that Sanders factor,
Yeah.
right? Can we talk about that for a minute? I mean, being Deion Sanders' son, it has to come with some unique pressures.
Oh, without a doubt. The spotlight's always going to be brighter. The expectations are just naturally higher. People are always going to compare him to his father, who was, let's face it, one of the greatest defensive backs of all time. That's a tough act to follow.
For sure. For sure. And, the media, they love a good narrative. Deion's son struggles at the Shrine Bowl. That's a much juicier headline than Shilo Sanders shows potential in practice.
Yeah, it's that negativity bias. We tend to, focus on the negative stuff more than the positive. And in the world of sports media, those dramatic narratives, they take center stage.
Definitely, definitely. So, it's a good reminder to always dig a little deeper. Look beyond the headlines and form your own opinion. Don't just take everything at a face value.
I couldn't agree more.
Okay, good. Now, before we jump into those draft projections, there's one last thing I want to bring up. It's maybe a little inside baseball. you know?
Or were you thinking about the possibility of like intentional misinformation?
Yeah, exactly. It's not unheard of for teams to try to downplay a player's abilities leading up to the draft, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe they see something special and want to snag him later in the draft, or maybe they're just trying to throw other teams off, create some confusion.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all part of the game. And in today's world where information spreads so fast, it's easier than ever to manipulate people's perceptions.
Okay, so we've covered a lot here. Shiloh's journey, his strengths, that whole Shrine Bowl thing, the Sanders factor, even a little draft day intrigue. But let's get to the bottom line here. Where do the experts actually see him landing in the 2025 draft?
Well, right now it looks like most projections have him as a potential day 3 pick.
Okay, so maybe not a top pick, but still a chance to make it into the league. And knowing Shiloh, I wouldn't count him out just yet.
No, absolutely not. Teams look at so much more than just a handful of practice sessions. They look at game film, they have interviews, private workouts, all those factors come into play. And remember, Shiloh's got a history of exceeding expectations.
This is where it gets exciting, right?
Yeah.
We've got all this information, all these different perspectives, and now it's up to you, the listener, to decide what you think.
Exactly. Don't just take our word for it. Do your own research, look at the evidence, and form your own conclusions about Shilo Sanders and his potential.
And that's what these deep dives are all about, giving you the information you need to become your own expert.
Yeah, it's all about, connecting those dots. We talked about his strengths, but how do those actually translate to the NFL? Where could he really excel?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, right? Like versatility is one thing, but finding the right fit within a system is crucial. So what kind of defensive schemes would best utilize his skill set? What do you think?
Well, let's think about those zone coverage instincts for a sec. You
Yeah.
mentioned he seems to have a good feel for the game, and that really shows in his ability to read quarterbacks,
Yeah.
anticipate routes, react quickly. So teams that run a lot of cover 2 or cover 3, where he can kind of patrol a zone and make plays on the ball, those would be a good fit.
Oh, okay. So you're picturing him like in that center field role, eyes locked on the quarterback, just ready to pounce.
Exactly, like a hawk just waiting to swoop in on an unsuspecting receiver.
Right, right. But you also mentioned like he's not afraid to get physical, right? I mean, those 70 tackles at Colorado, those weren't all from interceptions.
Oh, you're absolutely right. He's definitely comfortable playing closer to the line of scrimmage too. He's got the tackling skills, and he's not afraid to get physical. So a team that likes to disguise coverages and bring him down into the box for blitzes or run support, they could also really utilize his versatility.
Okay, interesting. So not just a ball hawk, but also a potential weapon against the run. That definitely adds another layer to his
Well,
game. But I mean, no prospect is perfect, right? Everyone has, areas they can improve. So what do scouts see as potential weaknesses for Shiloh? What are they saying?
Well, one thing that comes up sometimes is his technique in man coverage. It's not like a glaring weakness or anything, but it's definitely something he could refine to become even more well-rounded. Like when he's matched up one-on-one with a receiver, his footwork and his hand placement could be more consistent.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, in zone coverage, he's reacting to the play as it develops.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
But in man coverage, it's all about that disciplined technique to stick with your assigned receivers.
You got it. And it's a skill that can definitely be, honed with coaching and experience. And let's not forget, he's got a pretty incredible resource in his corner. His dad, Deion Sanders. I mean, he knows a thing or two about playing defensive back at the highest level.
Right.
That kind of mentorship could be invaluable as Shiloh continues to develop.
For sure, for sure. Okay, so we've got the strength, the potential areas for improvement, the whole Sanders factor, those draft projections. It feels like we've covered a lot.
Yeah, we have. And it's important to remember that this is just a snapshot in time. Shiloh's still young. He's still growing as a player. This whole draft process is just one chapter in his story.
Right. And what a story it's been so far. Transferring schools, adapting to new systems, dealing with those sky-high expectations. I mean, he's already overcome a lot.
He really has. And that resilience, that ability to adapt and thrive in challenging situations, that could honestly be one of his greatest assets as he transitions to the NFL.
So as we start to wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
what's the one key takeaway you want our listener to to walk away with today? What do you want them to remember?
I want them to really think about the power of perspective, like how much do those pre-draft narratives, the media hype, even a player's lineage, how much do those things actually shape our expectations and our evaluations?
Yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in the buzz, the hot takes, all the comparisons, right? But we have to remember that every player is an individual. They're forging their own path.
Exactly. And Shilo Sanders he's a perfect example of that. He's not just Deion's son, he's his own player with his own unique skill set, his own strengths and weaknesses. He's got his own story to tell.
So as you continue to follow Shiloh's journey, I really encourage you to do it with an open mind and a critical eye.
Yeah.
Look beyond the headlines, dig a little deeper, and form your own conclusions about his potential.
Yeah, that's the beauty of this whole process, right? It's a journey of discovery, not just for the players, but for us as fans and analysts as well.
And what a journey it promises to be. It's gonna be interesting to see how the next few months play out for Shiloh. The draft's still a ways off, and a lot can change between now and then.
Absolutely. We'll be watching closely, looking for those signs that he's really ready to make that jump to the NFL.
And for you, the listener, this is where the fun really begins,
Yeah.
right? You've heard all the analysis, weighed the evidence, and now it's time to make your own predictions. Will Shiloh prove the doubters wrong and climb those draft boards? Will he land in a system that really plays to his strengths?
Yeah. It's your chance to play armchair GM, put on that scouting hat and see how your assessment stacks up against what actually happens on draft day.
Exactly. We've given you the tools, the insights, those different perspectives, and now it's up to you to connect the dots and see where the story goes.
And hey, if your predictions are right, you can brag to all your friends that you saw Shiloh's potential from the beginning.
That's right. And even if things don't go exactly as planned, that's part of what makes the draft so exciting, right? Full of surprises and twists and turns.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Shilo Sanders, remember the key takeaways. He's got the talent, the versatility, the work ethic, and of course the lineage. But most importantly, he's got that drive, that desire to prove himself and forge his own path.
Yeah, the Shrine Bowl, it might have raised some questions, but it's just one small piece of the puzzle.
And as always, it's so important to look beyond the hype, the criticism, those preconceived notions, and form your own informed opinion.
We've given you the information, the analysis, the context. Now it's your turn to dive deeper, explore further, and see where your own insights take you.
That's what makes these deep dives so great, right? It's not just about absorbing information. It's about engaging with it, challenging it, and making it your own.
So thanks for joining us on this journey of discovery. We hope you've enjoyed exploring the world of Shilo Sanders and the 2025 NFL Draft.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, everybody. And until next time, keep those critical thinking caps on, stay curious, and keep diving deep.
We'll see you on the next deep dive.